Listen, what happened with Lexie Hull last night wasn't just tough. It was the kind of moment that separates real warriors from everyone else. When that collision happened, the sound echoed through Gainbridge Fieldhouse like a gunshot. Fans literally gasped, some covered their eyes. And the knot on her forehead? It grew so fast that Hull herself said she could see it in her own peripheral vision. Yeah, you heard that right. She could actually see the bump sticking out of her own head while playing. But here's what nobody's talking about. This wasn't just about one player's toughness. This was about an Indiana Fever team that just sent a message to the entire WNBA. They walked into Nike's big Caitlin Clark celebration night without Caitlin, without half their guards, and absolutely demolished the Seattle Storm 95-75. And what Aaliyah Boston revealed after the game, it changes everything about how we see this team moving forward. If you're supporting the Fever this season, hit that like button right now and let's dive into what really went down. The setup for this game was honestly ridiculous. Indiana was missing 6 players. 6. Let that sink in for a second. Caitlin Clark had been out for 16 straight games with that nagging groin injury that just won't heal. Sophie Cunningham's season ended with a torn MCL, Sydney Colson tore her ACL, Ari McDonald broke a bone in her foot. Both happened in the same game just weeks ago. Chloe Bibby was still managing knee issues. That's your entire guard rotation basically wiped out. The Fever were literally signing players to 7-day hardship contracts just to have enough bodies to put on the court. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Indiana had dropped 4 of their last 5 games. They were clinging to that 8th and final playoff spot like their lives depended on it. One more bad stretch and their season was over. Seattle sat right above them in 6th place, just 1 game ahead. This wasn't just another regular season game. This was essentially a playoff elimination game in August. But here's where it gets even crazier. The entire night was supposed to be about Caitlin Clark. Nike had turned the arena into a massive celebration for her new logo reveal, banners everywhere, special edition shirts flooding the stands. Fans lined up taking selfies with branded backdrops. The irony was brutal. The biggest star in women's basketball, the player everyone came to see, could only watch from the sidelines in street clothes. It was like throwing a birthday party where the guest of honor can't eat the cake. Then 3 minutes into the game, disaster nearly struck again. Lexie Hull and Gabby Williams were both chasing a loose ball under the basket when their heads collided. And I mean collided. The crack was so loud that people in the upper deck heard it. Both players went down instantly. Hull was clutching her head. Williams wasn't moving much better. The entire arena went silent. You could feel the collective thought. Not another injury. Not Lexie. Not now. The footage is hard to watch even now. Hull tried to get on all fours first, clearly dazed. When she finally stood up, she had a towel pressed against her forehead. But as she walked to the locker room with trainer Todd Champlin, you could already see it. The swelling had started immediately. Within minutes, that bump was the size of a golf ball. By the time she got to the tunnel, it looked like a tennis ball was trying to push through her skin. Stephanie White, the Fever's coach, later called it disgusting. She wasn't exaggerating. Fans on social media were sharing screenshots with their hands over their mouths. Hull's own mother had to tweet reassurances that her daughter was okay, just dealing with a sore neck and jaw. But everybody watching assumed that was it for her night. You don't come back from something like that. Not in the same game. Not when your team is already running on fumes. Except Lexie Hull isn't everybody. Minutes later, she reappeared on the bench. The knot on her forehead was impossible to miss. It literally cast a shadow. Hull later joked that everyone kept telling her she looked beautiful, and she was like, "I know I look insane." But she wasn't just back on the bench for moral support. She checked back into the game in the second quarter. Her first possession back told you everything about this Fever team's DNA. Instead of playing cautious, instead of protecting herself, Hull dove on the floor for a loose ball. Full extension, no hesitation, the crowd erupted. They gave her a standing ovation that lasted 30 seconds. 5 minutes after returning, she drained a 24-foot three-pointer that forced Seattle to call timeout. The Fever were up 42-29, and the Storm looked completely rattled. Hull finished with 5 points and 9 rebounds, but her plus 31 rating tells the real story. When she was on the court, Indiana dominated. She was everywhere on defense, contesting shots, fighting through screens, making Brittany Sykes work for every inch. After the game, Hull's explanation was simple but powerful. If I can play, I can play. Whether or not I look good isn't the problem. The team is the most important thing. That mentality spread through the entire roster like wildfire. Aaliyah Boston saw what Hull did and decided to have the best game of her season. She absolutely destroyed Seattle in the paint. 27 points, 9 rebounds, and she did it with authority. Every post-up was violent. Every finish was emphatic. She was sending bodies flying, and the Storm had no answer. Coach White explained it perfectly. Without Clark's gravity pulling defenses out to the perimeter, without the veteran guards who know how to feed the post, Boston had been struggling to get consistent touches in the right spots. But on this night, she took matters into her own hands. Instead of waiting for the perfect entry pass, she went and got the ball. She was playing low to high instead of high to low. She was initiating contact instead of avoiding it. The numbers are staggering. Indiana outrebounded Seattle 42-21. That doesn't happen at this level. The Storm are a veteran team with Nneka Ogwumike and Ezi Magbegor, but they looked like a JV squad getting bullied by varsity players. Every missed shot seemed to bounce directly to a Fever player. Second chance points were piling up. Seattle's guards couldn't penetrate without running into traffic. Their offense completely stalled. Odyssey Sims was the perfect complement to Boston's interior dominance. 22 points on efficient shooting, but it was how she got them that mattered. She was attacking in transition, pushing the pace, keeping Seattle's defense scrambling. Then came the shot that brought the house down. With the shot clock winding down, Sims pulled up from the logo, 30-plus feet out, and buried it. The arena exploded. Players on the bench were falling over each other. Even Seattle's coaches shook their heads in disbelief. Here's a player who was signed late in the season as an emergency addition. She wasn't supposed to be a difference maker. She was supposed to be a body to fill minutes. Instead, she's playing like she's been with this core for years. Her chemistry with Boston was instant. Pick and roll, perfectly executed, drive and dish right on target. She was seeing plays develop before the defense could react. Kelsey Mitchell added her typical steady brilliance. 21 points, including some massive shots whenever Seattle tried to make a run. But there was something extra in her game too. She broke a Fever franchise record for most points in a single season, passing even Caitlin Clark's rookie year total. And she did it on a night when Clark's logo was literally everywhere. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Mitchell's leadership was different too. Usually quiet and focused, she was vocal all night, directing traffic on defense, encouraging teammates after every good play. When Hull came back with that massive nod on her head, Mitchell was the first one to embrace her. You could read her lips saying, "That's my dog right there." By halftime, Indiana led 50-39, and it felt like more. Seattle had 9 turnovers. They were shooting under 40%. Skylar Diggins looked frustrated. Gabby Williams, who also returned after the collision, seemed hesitant to drive. The Storm's body language screamed defeat. They came out for the third quarter and immediately gave up an 11-2 run. Game over. The final score, 95-75, doesn't capture how dominant Indiana was. They held Seattle to just 3 fast break points the entire game. 3. For a team that loves to run, that's basically imprisonment. The Fever controlled tempo from the opening tip. They dictated where the game was played. They imposed their will on a team that was supposed to expose their depleted roster. But here's what makes this even more significant. While the Fever were celebrating in the locker room, while Aaliyah Boston was talking about Hull being the definition of tough, while Stephanie White was praising her team's resilience, there was something else happening. Caitlin Clark had been at shoot-around that morning. For the first time in over a month, she participated in team drills. Light work, non-contact, but she was there. She was moving, she was getting closer. Reports are suggesting August 26th might have been the original target for her return. That game has passed. But what about Friday against the Sparks? What about Sunday against the Valkyries? The Fever still have 6 games left. Clark has been running at full speed. She's been doing individual workouts. The next step is full practice with contact. Once that happens, once she clears that final hurdle, she's back. Imagine what this team looks like with Clark stretching defenses again. Boston dominated with no space. What happens when she has room to operate? Sims was brilliant as the primary ball handler. What happens when she can play off ball and attack scrambling defenses? Mitchell is already setting records. What happens when she gets those wide-open looks from Clark's gravity? The Western road trip coming up suddenly looks different. The Sparks are beatable. The Valkyries are struggling. Phoenix has been inconsistent. These aren't just winnable games anymore. These are opportunities to climb the standings, to build momentum, to enter the playoffs not as an 8th seed hanging on, but as a team nobody wants to face. And let's talk about what this means for the playoffs, because the Fever just proved something crucial. They're not a one-player team. Yes, Clark makes them special. Yes, they need her for a championship run, but they just swept the season series against Seattle without her. They just dominated a playoff team while missing 6 players. They just showed they have multiple ways to win. Teams are going to have to pick their poison. Focus on stopping Clark when she returns. Boston will destroy you inside. Collapse on Boston. Mitchell and Sims will light you up from outside. Try to play physical and intimidate them. Good luck with that after watching Lexie Hull come back from a head collision that would have sent most players to the hospital. The mental toughness factor can't be overlooked either. This is a young team that's been through everything this season. Injuries that would have broken most rosters, pressure that would have crushed most cores, expectations that would have overwhelmed most players. And they're still standing. Still fighting, still winning games they have no business winning. Natasha Howard posted something interesting after the game. She said they're fighting different with their girls out of the lineup. She said the hard work from Clark, McDonald, and Coulson won't go unnoticed. Then she ended with "See you soon, Cece," with a fire emoji. Does she know something? Is Clark closer than we think? Or is this just teammate optimism? The coaching has been masterful too. Stephanie White has had to completely reimagine her offense multiple times. She's had to get creative with rotations. She's had to manage minutes carefully with such a short bench. And she's done it all while keeping the team focused and motivated. That's championship-level coaching. That's building a culture that lasts beyond one season. Hull's performance specifically deserves more attention. She's been in trade rumors. She's been criticized for inconsistent offense. She's been overlooked in favor of flashier players. But nights like this remind you why she was a number 6 overall pick, why Stanford built their defense around her, why the Fever see her as a core piece moving forward. She's tough as nails, she never complains, and she shows up when it matters most. The crowd response tells you everything about how this fanbase has evolved. They came to celebrate Caitlin Clark's logo. They stayed to watch a team gut out a crucial win. They gave standing ovations for effort plays. They cheered defensive stops as loud as made threes. This isn't just about one superstar anymore. This is about a team and a city falling in love with each other. Looking ahead, the schedule sets up perfectly for drama. Friday in Los Angeles could be Clark's return. Sunday against the Valkyries is another winnable game. Then comes the gauntlet. Back-to-back games against Minnesota, the best team in the league. If Clark is back by then, those games become must-watch television. If she's not, we might see more heroic efforts like tonight. The bigger picture is even more intriguing. The Fever have built something sustainable. They have a superstar in Clark. They have an elite post presence in Boston. They have a proven scorer in Mitchell. They have tough role players like Hull. They have veteran leadership in Howard. And they have a coach who maximizes every piece. This isn't just about making the playoffs anymore. This is about building a contender. Other teams are watching. Other players are noticing. Free agents are going to look at Indiana differently. This is a team that fights for each other. That doesn't make excuses. That finds ways to win when everything goes wrong. In a league where super teams are becoming the norm, the Fever are building something organic. Something real. Something that might last longer than anyone expects. Tonight wasn't just about beating Seattle. It wasn't just about Lexie Hull's toughness or Aaliyah Boston's dominance. It was about identity. It was about proving that the Indiana Fever are more than Caitlin Clark's team. They're a team with championship DNA. They're a team that refuses to quit. They're a team that's going to be a problem for years to come. So what happens next? Clark continues her recovery. The team continues to fight. The playoffs get closer. And every game becomes must-see action. Because if they can do this without their best player, if they can dominate while depleted, imagine what's possible when they're whole. Imagine what's possible when the player who changed women's basketball returns to a team that just proved they can win without her. The Fever aren't just trying to make the playoffs anymore, they're building something bigger, something special. And nights like tonight, when Lexie Hull played through pain that would have stopped most people, when Aaliyah Boston dominated like a force of nature, when Odyssey Sims hit shots from another area code, when Kelsey broke franchise records. This is what championship teams are made of. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more WNBA coverage, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Comment below with your thoughts on when Caitlin Clark will return and whether this Fever team can make a deep playoff run. The season's about to get very interesting, and you won't want to miss what happens next.